afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Moss again here at allpointstv.com and also WFOV 92.1. And a third part of our partnership here at the studio is Facebook, and we're very glad to have you with us as well. We're coming together again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, and we do our program every Monday from 2 o'clock to 3. This program re-airs again on WFOV on Fridays and also again on Saturday. And we're just very glad to have all our partners on board. And we're trying to do a quality job here each time we come before the public. And we hope you will stay tuned for this program and all programs here at allpointstv.com. And we'll, in fact, support the studio just with your presence. We don't ask for donations. We just want you to be attentive to what we're trying to do here.
Please like us on Facebook and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, All Points TV on YouTube. Though that way you can get notifications whenever we do a show.
Yeah, we're like John. We're like Avis, so we have to try harder. We're trying to become Hertz, but we're working hard here to earn the space that we're trying to move into, and we've been here for a while, so we're not going anywhere, and we are trying to bring up from the rear some things that nobody else is talking about. And I'm so very glad to be a part of the studio here. I want to thank the technicians here for doing a fine job. They allow us to come to the studio and stand before the cameras, and we take all of the bows, but if the people are not doing what they're supposed to do behind the scenes, then this program cannot operate and this studio cannot function. So we're very glad that they're doing their jobs. I wanted to continue to talk about some other aspects of the impeachment, because I don't think we have covered every aspect of it, but it's becoming clear every day what this process entails, because the politicians are coming out more and more out of the woodwork to really show what they really intend and what they're doing in terms of the use of this process. And I wanted to start off the program today by reading some comments by Laurence Tribe. And I have to tell you that I'm losing a lot of respect the more I think about what they're doing in these revered positions they hold, such as Laurence Tribe's position. He's one of the professors of law at Harvard University. And this man is really quite a political hack. And I'm going to read an article that appeared on May 17th, 2018. This article was taken from the Investor's Business Daily. And I want to read this because almost the whole article is in entirety, because I want to show you how these scholars really operate, since they have so much information about things that very few people have studied to the same extent that they've studied. They do a lot of things in terms of injecting their own political bias, and you can't catch them with it because you don't know where their expertise starts and stops and where their partisan views begin, because they try to blend the two together. But Laurence Tribe is a special case of someone doing that. Another person that does it is Judge Napolitano. And in fact, this past weekend, I was following him around on YouTube, wherever he appeared on any program that they were re-airing on YouTube, where you have the comment section. I was commenting about things that Napolitano had stated, and I can tell you that a lot of things that he's talking about, this guy claims to be a constitutional scholar and also an expert in the areas in which he's commenting, but I can tell you that this man is a lightweight. He may be good in terms of quoting somebody else, but when it comes down to him understanding the Constitution on his own without being pointed into a certain direction to import his own understandings, he's very limited. I was on one post that he was on, where he was on a Fox program, and he re-aired the program, and he was commenting about the question of the census, and he was talking about how the court has ruled that you cannot put the census question, you cannot put the citizenship question on the census that they're getting ready to issue, which they do every 10 years, based upon Article 1, Section 2, Clause 2. And they asked the question of whether or not the census requires, do you have to have the citizenship question on the census, and what is it designed to, what are we trying to find out by doing the census? And Napolitano made the statement that the census is to take in the information that would tell us about the population that's in the country. And he did not then state more specifically that even though that is true, you want to find out all the persons that are in the country, and the census would be one way of finding that out. But what he did not say is, and this is a certain part of dishonesty by omission, he didn't say that the particular reason why you have it in order to do the apportionment for the representation in the House of Representatives, and you have to know, therefore, who are the citizens in the country. So you might want to, in fact, find out who's in the country in general, but in a more specific way, the reason why you have the census taken is because you need to reapportion the Congress, in terms of the House of Representatives, so that we will know exactly what the state will be allotted as far as its representatives in the House, because that is allotted based upon the population. And when you have states gain population and then states that lose population or do not increase the population, then the reallocation of the representatives will occur. And for Napolitano to say that is not to do that work to find out who the citizens are in the country, that is to look at the whole population, for him to say that, and to say that the court is correct in terms of limiting the question of the citizenship on the census, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I would suggest that he get back with me once he reads, don't tell me, after he reads Fairless Papers 52, 53, and 54, particularly 54, if he can understand it. Particularly 54, written by either Alexander Hamilton or James Madison. And of course, there's a question about which one of them wrote it. We have to look back at the style. It is thought that Hamilton wrote it, but it could well be James Madison. We know John Jay did not do it. The other person that wrote part of the 85 Federalist Papers, 5 of them written by John Jay. But it's between James Madison and Alexander Hamilton as far as the ones who wrote Federalist Papers 52, 53, and 54. And if you read 54, I don't think you have any question about the illegality of the court telling the president that you cannot put the citizenship question on the census. And of course, there's a lot of politics involved in it. They don't want us to know how many persons have come into this country that are in fact illegally in this country, so as to hold down the outrage the American people would have. They find out how many people are in this country that they're financing through the taxation policies of this country, people that are being financed here, given the free education and things of that sort, and health care, given some privileges that even citizens don't have, to keep the outcry down. They don't want people to know how many people are in this country that should not be here. And they're not undocumented. Well, if they're undocumented, they don't want them to be documented, because the census is one way of documenting it. And they don't want the question to be asked. And you have to raise the question, why is that? And they're playing, this is politics being played by these judges. And I don't know where we got this idea from, that in the separation of powers, we can have these judges that are not even elected by anybody in the country. These federal judges are appointed. And by the way, appointed by the president, then they turn around and order the president around. I don't know where we get this idea from, that judges that are appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate, that they can, in fact, subsume the authority to tell the president what to do in a different branch of the government. I thought we had 3 co-equal branches of government, and unless you have another 1/3 joined onto the court, then how is 1/3, which is a co-equal part of the other 2/3, each 1/3 branch having 1/3 of the 100% of the power of the federal government? How are they able to order the president around when the president is the CEO of the United States? How does that happen? And where do we get the idea from that these judges, these dictators on the court, can dictate to the American people? 5 people can run this country, as if that was the intention of the framers. So I was following him around, and you read some of those posts this weekend. You see me on there commenting. So I want to get in on Napolitano's face and show him, to point out to him how limited he is, because this man has made some statements that a 3-year-old would not make. And I wanted to come behind him and write on the post where he would be able to see it, because I'm not out here hiding from him. I'm trying to get in his face and want him to come back to show me that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm definitely challenging what he's saying. And if you want to challenge me in what I'm saying, then we got a debate going on. I don't think he'll get on it, because what I'm saying here, I can document based upon where it can be found, and he cannot do that. This man that made the comment, this comment right here, I'm pulling out this page here that is from the publication that came out April the 25th. And the headline of it is Judge Knapp, meaning Judge Napolitano, Judge Knapp on impeachment. Then it has a colon there, and it says, quote, Congress can impeach anybody excuse me, for the reasons set forth in the Constitution. And he may well believe that, but he cannot prove it, because there's nothing in the Constitution that lays the foundation for impeachment. The Constitution establishes what you must do in order to bring about removal. But impeachment is a very broad subject, and I'll read somebody that's not a constitutional scholar, which is Al Green, Representative Al Green, who I don't think anybody would say is a constitutional scholar or a scholar, period. And he's closer to the impeachment process than is Judge Napolitano, and I'm gonna read what he says in a few minutes. But let me read this article about Laurence Tribe. The title of the article is an editorial. Is Laurence Tribe. Laurence Tribe is the law professor, one of the law professors at Harvard University. Laurence Tribe was against impeachment before he was for it. You'll never guess what changed. That's the title of the article. You'll never guess why he was against impeachment before he was for it, and you'll never guess what changed. And I'll give you a little hint before reading the article. What changed was the party of the person that was being impeached. He was for it when he was for it with the President Trump, and against it with President Clinton. The man is a political hack. And this article right here that came out in Investors Business Daily on 5/17/2018, May 17, 2018, is an indication of the fact he's a political hack. No constitutional scholar would do something like this. No person that respects the Constitution would do something like this. The article says, before President Trump even took the oath of office, constitutional law scholar Laurence Tribe was calling for his impeachment. Tribe hasn't stopped since. But 20 years ago, Tribe was singing a different tune about impeachment when a law-breaking Democrat was in the White House. In early December, less than a month after Trump won the election, Tribe tweeted that impeachment should begin on Inauguration Day. The election would have been held November the 8th, 2016. As you know, the president is now inaugurated on January the 20th. And it says here, Tribe tweeted that impeachment should begin on Inauguration Day. The president would be impeached on the day he is inaugurated, is what this man, this political hack, is saying. The article goes on and says, 8 days after Inauguration Day, Tribe declared that Trump was already guilty of, quote, shredding the Constitution more monstrously than any other president in American history. He's done that within 8 days of being inaugurated. He since claimed, still reading the article, he since claimed Trump should be impeached and removed from office for his, quote, cruel brand of bigotry and scapegoating, for, quote, falsely claiming, unquote, that the Obama administration wiretapped his campaign for a State Department blog post on Mar-a-Lago. Most recently, Trump should be removed for the simple reason that we don't like, quote, what kind of nation will we have become should he stay in office? This is a constitutional scholar saying this.
Well, I'd say alleged constitutional scholar.
Alleged scholar. No scholar would do this. No person that has any respect for the Constitution would do this, or anyone that has any integrity. And all three of those are demerits with this man.
But you know, it's just that everybody will try to use the Constitution when they see the other side violating it, but then they'll turn around and ignore it when their own side is ignoring it. Like, you know, the Patriot Act. Okay, all the constitutional conservatives out there who like they call themselves that were so far with Bush, you know, Bush Jr. But when after 9/11, the Patriot Act was being pushed through, it's basically they made it seem like your loyalty to the country was displayed by this willingness, demonstrated by this willingness to allow your Constitution to take a back seat. So I mean, I joined the ACLU for several years. I helped. I sent money to him. I didn't go, you know, to present a legal case, obviously, but because I saw the Republicans are just like running away from the Constitution or putting it in the toilet, because this alleged fear they had, the scare they had going on about this foreign power or these powers or whatever. So I mean, both sides do that. That's what angers me the most. We have a Constitution. If it was widely applied, we wouldn't have the abuses that we are now. They're always pointing to as being, you know, the demonstrating how rough, racist we are, whatever. If the Constitution had been followed from the beginning, the protection of the individual rights would have been guaranteed. There would have been very little need for the civil rights movement or anything else. But yet they want to jettison. I think the Constitution would have, if it was more applicably applied, could have prevented a lot of horrible things.
Yeah, John, if we would understand who these politicians are, and it doesn't matter what party they're in, they're all political hacks. I'm surprised, quite frankly, that people still listen to these people. And these so-called scholars, Napolitano, every time I look up, he's on television. And I was surprised, by the way, when I was reading the post that I commented on, I was surprised at how many persons have caught on to Napolitano, because they were saying that this man misstates the facts all the time. I was surprised it was almost every last one of them that was onto this guy. I thought I was the only one out there that was calling him on his statements. But this man is stating a lot of things that are not true based upon the Constitution. You can't say, as he does, that.
Isn't he the one that wrote the Constitution They wrote the book, The Constitution in
He
Exile.
wrote that. He wrote it, and he's part of the ones that put it in exile.
Well, it's like, the thing is, I forget if it's Black or Blackstone. He was a great jurist of England.
Yeah.
He actually wrote a book, comprehensive, about law.
Right.
And actually, later on, one person who was opponent actually used his own work, cited his own works to defeat him in a court case. So maybe we have to do that with this guy,
Yeah, they're talking out both sides of their mouth, and my whole thing is to hold everybody accountable, and I want the listeners in our viewership and listenership to hold us responsible. We're supposed to be accountable too. Don't take anybody's word for it. Anything I say here on the air in this program, I want you to check behind me and find out if it's there. I'm going to try to tell you where you can go and look at it, and it will be where I tell you that it is in terms of these documents. But you cannot say things like what Judge Knapp is saying about impeachment, where he says Congress can impeach anybody for the reasons set forth in the Constitution. You can't say things like that and be a constitutional scholar, because it's not true. Impeachment is a political process, and you're seeing it play out in what's being read here about the comments made by Laurence Tribe. Laurence Tribe is a political hack in saying things like this. Now, it says, after having read where it says 8 days after Inauguration Day, Tribe declared that Trump was already guilty of, quote, shredding the Constitution more monstrously than any other president in American history. How can that be possible? When presidents have served 2 terms, Franklin Roosevelt, who was the second biggest violator of the Constitution, was elected, then served the last term fully, died in 1945, but he was elected to 4 terms. And so you mean to tell me that Donald Trump, within a matter of 8 days after his inauguration, has shredded the Constitution more monstrously than any other president in American history? That cannot be true. Not when you have Abraham Lincoln. Go back and go read De Lorenzo's book. 2 books by De Lorenzo, The Real Lincoln and Lincoln Unmasked. And you can read a lot of other books also, but those 2 key books by Thomas De Lorenzo kind of pulls the mask off of Abraham Lincoln, who was really dictatorial. This man was a dictator.
By the way, I did check it up. It was Blackstone. Yeah, Blackstone.
Yeah, it's Blackstone.
Yeah, because there's Black's Law Dictionary too.
Yeah.
So I get the 2 confused at times because it's they're all tied to legal things. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, you're right.
We had the
Exactly right. I agree with you on that point. They're saying Donald Trump has done more damage to the Constitution and to the country than any president in American history. And he's saying this 8 days after Donald Trump was inaugurated, and this man has called for Donald Trump to be impeached on Inauguration Day. And you probably heard them out there hollering about impeach Donald Trump even before he took office. And for a scholar of the Constitution to do that and be in the leadership of that parade, that is unconscionable and unforgivable. Reading again from the article, he since claimed Trump should be impeached and removed from office for his, quote, cruel brand of bigotry and scapegoating, for, quote, falsely claiming, unquote, that the Obama administration wiretapped his campaign, which we now know that the campaign was wiretapped by the Obama administration. For a State Department blog post at Mar-a-Lago. Most recently, the claim is Trump should be removed for the simple reason that we don't like, listen to this carefully now, we don't like, is that a constitutional standard that we don't like, quote, what kind of nation will we have become should he stay in office? So if we elect someone to the presidency and we then have and some have a second thought about the election outcome because we didn't vote for the person, then what Laurence Tribe is saying is that they should then subsume the verdict should not stand. And if you notice it, that's exactly what they were doing with the Electoral College. They were trying to stop the process from going forward by having lost the vote, the electoral vote. They were trying to head off the election of the president by going to the electors in the Electoral College and trying to keep them from voting based upon the state verdict, and they would vote differently than the states did, and would not give Donald Trump the 270 electoral votes necessary for him to become president based upon the electoral votes, because states elect the president, as you know. Okay, on that level, on this statement, we'll take a break and let WFOV take their 4-minute break at this time, and we welcome them back after the break in 4 minutes. We look forward to you coming back at that time. I'm going to continue to read an article by Laurence Tribe. I want to read it in total almost, because I want you to see how contrived this whole thing is. They want this man out of office, and they're willing to break all the canons. You saw it last week with the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, breaking the House rules in order to bring before the American people an indictment against his president. And they are getting ready to impeach his president. Don't make any mistake about it. They're going down this road too far to turn back now. It would, in fact, demoralize their base if they did not do it. And the only reason that they're bringing Mueller up there this week, on Wednesday this week, to testify in a very controlled environment for 4 hours, 2 hours before 2 different committees, the only reason they're bringing them back up there is to rekindle and re-energize the impeachment push, which they did not get from Mueller when he released his report. And what really stopped them from doing it at that time, they thought they were going to be able to get the report and then use that as momentum toward impeachment. But Barr outsmarted them by having read the report, and then before it's released to the public, summarize its contents. And that stopped them at that point. So now on the other side of that, they've got to now call Mueller back up and then use him as cover to restart the impeachment process. And that's all that is about. And I have to tell you something, Mueller should be investigated because, well, let's let it play out Wednesday. We'll come back next week and talk about it. But they're not out of the water yet, because they could really have started a fire here. So rather than rekindling the impeachment process against Donald Trump, they may well kindle a fire. It might be used for kindling wood, because for the first time, Mueller is going to be exposed for questioning. It's one thing to make a report and then walk out and ride off in the sunset. It's quite another thing to come before it'll be the Nadler's committee, Gerald Nadler from New York. That guy somebody needs to throw him out of office. They need to go to the polls in 2020 and get him out of there. But Nadler, it may backfire, because the Republicans will have a chance now to ask Mueller the question they asked Nixon, and that is, when did you know that there was no collusion, and how did you know it? Because those of us who are watching it along with Mueller, we knew there was no collusion at the very beginning of the investigation. And he didn't find any collusion, and he didn't find any obstruction of justice. And he cannot come behind that report and say otherwise. Otherwise, he handed in a report that is false based upon his new testimony and opening it back up and saying something different. So he's not going to be able to add to what he's already written in his report. So it could very well backfire on them. Okay, let me continue to read this. Now, Tribe has written what looks like an, quote, impeachment for dummies guide. Should Democrats regain control of the House next year? Don't forget this was written in 2018. In his book called To End a Presidency, The Power of Impeachment. In it, and in an op-ed in USA Today, and want to welcome back WFOV. Thank you for coming back. And we're not very far from where we were when you left. We're still reading from the article by Laurence Tribe. Now, Tribe has written what looks like an impeachment for dummies guide. Should Democrats regain control of the House next year? And of course, they did regain the House in 2019, having been elected with larger numbers in the House in 2018. They didn't take the House, by the way. The Republicans recused themselves, just like Jeff Sessions did, and recusing himself in terms of being appointed Attorney General and then stepping to the side and then giving leeway for this guy that was in there as the Assistant Attorney General, and this person who is going to hopefully bring him before some committee to investigate his role, because all of them were in cahoots with each other, along with the intelligence community. This case is not over yet. And what they're doing Wednesday, it could very well backfire on them, because they may be opening up a whole can of worms, a new can of worms. There's enough baggage out there already, but this may open some new corridors of investigation. And I would not be satisfied until some people who pull this hoax, who tried to overturn the election in this country, I won't be surprised. I will not be satisfied until some people are brought to court and tried, and that has to happen. Criminal law is, this is a quote, criminal law is not a comprehensive list of acts that might imperil democracy if committed by the president. In other words, there's no comprehensive list of acts that the president has to commit in order to be impeached. And I agree with him on that. But it contradicts what he said earlier, and also some things he has said when it came down to the impeachment of Bill Clinton, where he's on the other side of that issue at that time. And he says in the article, but it was the same tribe who just 20 years ago was arguing that even though President Clinton had broken the law by perjuring himself, he shouldn't be removed from office. So he's calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump, who hasn't done anything, even was calling for it before he took office. Here is, 20 years ago, Laurence Tribe is arguing that even though President Clinton had broken the law by purging himself, he shouldn't be removed from office. To make his argument against impeaching Clinton, Tribe, quote, nearly threw his back out trying to raise the constitutional bar for removal. The Cato Institute's Gene Healy aptly put it. Nearly threw his back out trying to make sure that the impeachment process does not go forward. This constitutional scholar that sees it one way, depending on this candidate, sees it a different way, the same language when another candidate is on the hot seat. In testimony before the House Judiciary Committee in 1998, Tribe argued that for an offense to be impeachable, it had to, quote, severely threaten the system of government or constitute a grievous abuse of official power or both. This is what he said 20 years ago. And that's not true either, because you don't have to have any charge, any legal charge to bring about impeachment. The framers were very, very good about understanding that impeachment is a political process. However, they will raise the bar if you're trying to remove the president. You see, they're talking about impeaching the president. There's nothing to be feared here. It's not going to go anywhere, because the trial takes place in the Senate, and they will never get 2/3 conviction of this president. Number one, the Republicans that don't want him in there, they cannot come out and expose themselves that way, because what will happen to them is what's happened to Justin Amash, the representative from the 3rd District in Michigan, who came out of the woodwork and now running as independent because they ran him out of the Republican Party. He didn't step down, they ran him out of there. And if he thinks he's going to be able to get through in the backdoor approach, we're going to see if that's going to take place next year, because he's running as independent because he had lost his purchase as a Republican standard bearer because he exposed himself being one of those persons behind the scenes undercutting this president. Back then, quoting the article, back then, even murder was a close call in tribes' eyes if the president did the deed himself for personal reasons. So even if the president had committed murder, but didn't do it for political reasons, but for personal reasons, tribe, the article is saying, was even willing to forgive Clinton even if that had occurred. Healy notes, pointing to passages from Tribe's testimony in which Tribe explains how Aaron Burr wasn't impeached after he killed Alexander Hamilton. This man is a constitutional scholar. This man is mad. This is a madman. I don't mean mad with his mouth stuck out. This man is psychologically mad. Tribe argued that Clinton's committing perjury wasn't impeachable because basically he was lying about a private matter. He was lying about a private matter, yes, but he's lying about a private matter before the Congress. It's one thing to lie about a private matter of that sort in your house to your wife, you're covering up that you have engaged in infidelity. That's one thing. But this man is talking about it, that this is not a crime to go before the body of the Congress, take an oath to tell the truth, and then lie. And he's saying that's not an impeachable offense. That's not an offense that would bring about the removal of a president. Tribe argued that Clinton's committing perjury wasn't impeachable because basically he was lying about a private matter. In this case, having sex with an intern in the Oval Office. But even if what Clinton did was impeachable, Tribe seemed to think he shouldn't have been removed. In his book, Tribe quotes approvingly from a speech given by then Senator Robert Byrd. That's somebody we want to quote. On why Clinton should not be removed from office. Byrd, the Klansman. Even though Clinton broke, this is Byrd speaking, even though Clinton broke his oath, quote, to see to it that the laws be faithfully executed, Byrd said, and by doing so had, quote, undermined the system of justice and law on which the Republic has its foundation, and even though it was reasonable to view these as impeachable offenses, senators should vote to acquit Clinton. Why? Because of the people's perception that this entire matter is being driven by political agendas. Can you believe they're saying this? Are these people insane or what?
Well, that was 20-some years ago. He could always excuse he's getting senile.
It is incredible that this could go on in this country, and these persons are still considered to be constitutional scholars.
Well, it's kind of underscored, this whole dilemma kind of underscores a problem of having people who are typically from a law-bred background, and they think it's a good natural tie or spinoff. They go to legal, law school, and they become the political scientists. Usually go to law school, and they always been motivated for a mindset. They didn't look at the law as something you had to deal with as is. They always have a mind of how they can change it or what they can selectively enforce or ignore. That's what it's always been about.
That's why it's so dangerous, because they have a bit more knowledge than the average person, the average layman, and they can come out as the scholars that are constitutionally grounded and come out here and say things that delude the public into believing that they are giving the right information, and that's why there's to be called on it. That's why Laurence Tribe needs to be exposed, because this man is still teaching law at Harvard University, and he's still out here in the public making these comments. Byrd said that removing Clinton under these circumstances would, quote, only serve to further undermine a public trust that is too much damaged already. So the public would be more damaged by having laws violated and then having the person exonerated of the violation, but would be more the public trust would be more in danger if, in fact, they enforce the laws of the country. This is what's being said here. Trabb says elsewhere in his book that in the case of Clinton, quote, impeachment was misused by partisans opposed to the president but unable to identify a great offense against the nation. He wants to impeach Trump before he is in fact installed in office, wants to impeach him on Inauguration Day, yet he's saying here about Clinton that impeachment was misused by partisans opposed to the president but unable to identify a great offense against the nation. I guess lying under oath is not an offense against the nation. The article asks, has it not occurred to Trabb? Has it not occurred to Trabb or anyone else who's been baying for Trump's removal for the past 17 months that he's doing exactly the same thing today? Partisan impeachment, I mean. All the talk of impeaching Trump has been nakedly partisan, driven not by any high crimes and misdemeanors, but by personal or political animus. And since impeachment advocates haven't been able to find any, quote, great offense in the nation committed by Trump, other than his offending liberals, they've simply tossed anything and everything they can onto the impeachment pile. Yet 56% of those following the Mueller investigation closely say that talk of impeaching Trump is premature. According to the latest poll, among independents, it's 58% against impeachment. Among Republicans, it's 88%. Meanwhile, despite overwhelming negative coverage, Trump's approval ratings have been climbing. The public is more optimistic about the future, and the latest Gallup shows that satisfaction with the direction of the country is higher than it's been since 2005 and equal to the poll's 40-year average. If Trump were impeached, there's little doubt that it will be seen by a significant portion of the country as a blatant attempt by Democrats to nullify an election on its flimsiest of terms. Talk about undermining public trust. We don't doubt, this article, again, we don't doubt Trabb's mastery of constitutional law. But by letting politics drive his impeachment views, Trabb makes himself look less like a legal scholar who deserves respect and more like a partisan hack who deserves none. And that's the bottom line of it. Now, he's a scholar. Let me read what the non-scholar says. This is written by the man who stood up some months ago and said, Mr. Speaker, I want to introduce articles of impeachment against the President of the United States. And this was Representative Al Green of Texas. You know, we ought to call for the replacement of this Al Green with a singer. At least we get some soul music out of it. Representative Al Green. The article says Representative Al Green demanded on the House floor Wednesday of last week, that President Trump be impeached for, listen to this part, for, quote, corrupting society and, quote, creating harm to society, saying an, quote, unfit president need not be proven to have committed a crime to face impeachment. And I would agree with him on that point. But I do want, and what he's saying here is that you don't need to have to prove he's committed a crime in order to bring about impeachment. That's true, Al Green, the person that does not sing, but the one that's up there spreading nonsense in the Congress. You don't need a crime to bring about impeachment. However, you must have a crime to bring about removal. And you made the point that the scholars do not make, and that is that you can impeach for anything because impeachment is political. But the framers in their infinite wisdom understood the political process and understood the politicians and understood how they might want to abuse their power, as they're doing in this case with Donald Trump, and therefore they took measures to head them off at the pass and stop them from using the impeachment process to remove by raising the bar from politics to a legal standard in the Constitution. And that's why it says that the president, vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. So I have to tell you something. If you come with this standard right here that Green calls for, and say that you don't have to prove a crime has been committed to face impeachment, I agree with him on that. But what Green doesn't understand is that if you impeach and you convict on the impeachment charge and you don't have evidence of a crime being committed, then you cannot remove this president under Article 2, Section 4. And if he thinks that he can do it, that he's sadly mistaken. And if they try to remove this president based upon what Green's standard is, just make the charge, convict on the charge, and then the president is out of here. If you try to create that standard, then you're going to find out at the end of the process that that's going to be actionable in the court of law. You see, here's the problem that they don't understand about this process, and that is this. First of all, they create a problem when they say that the president being removed from office is the impeachment process. That's dangerous because they are right in saying that the impeachment process is not subject to overview by the federal court. The Supreme Court cannot do an overview of the impeachment process. But that's not the impeachment process they're talking about. They're talking about the removal process. The removal, if you try to remove a president, and the Constitution requires for the president to be charged with treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors for the removal of the president using the impeachment process to bring about the removal. If that standard is not met, then the president does not vacate his office based upon that standard because it's underneath the requirements of the Constitution. And so it's dangerous to say that this is the impeachment process because if you say you cannot have the courts intervene in the impeachment process and you make that the process, we got a problem, don't we? Because then you're saying the impeachment process is this, and you can remove the president if you then say that's the impeachment process. And that's why they're saying that, because they want the American people to believe that what is really the removal that has certain constitutional requirements. They want you people to believe that that is the process through which you impeach. That's not the process of impeachment. It's a process for removal using the impeachment process. And they hope you don't understand it because all of the corridors of power are trying to close in on this president. And why are they doing that? Because this man went directly to the voters. He went around them and became president of the United States and broke into the club against their permission on the back of the voters of this country, 63 million strong. And they got to do something between now and next year, November next year, because if the president wins a second term and wins by a larger margin, then everything they've been saying here is exposed. I already know they've been lying, but some American people don't know they've been lying. If they lose by a larger landslide and they can't claim Russia in this election in 2020, they got a problem. They could really destroy the Democratic Party. And that's why they got to do the impeachment, because they understand this. They don't have anybody over there in the stable for the Democratic Party. They don't have anybody over there. They got 20 some odd candidates right now. Some of them have dropped out.
And oh my God, the ones that they do have, the ones that are offering themselves up, oh my God. I mean,
terrible.
Oh, they're just, I'm looking at them, they look like almost cartoon-like characters. I'm not And I can understand why some people would say Donald Trump would have fit that bill. He seems like an odd person, flaky, off the wall, whatever. But these guys, these people on the Democratic side, I mean, oh my God, I mean, they're just they're buffoonish.
There are people that are buffoonish that have not done anything. You can say that Donald Trump was buffoonish, but Donald Trump was a billionaire at least 3 times over that had accomplished something. What has Kamala Harris? What has she accomplished? Let's look at some of the others. Look at Cortez. Not that she's running for elective office. This one was a bartender.
I can see. I personally like to see more people from all walks of life enter politics. I think we'd get a better understand, get a better feel for what this country is about. Of course, they're going to have a learning curve because they're going to have to learn the legal aspects and the political realities. So I don't have an issue with somebody's humble origins to become going to office. I'm getting tired of seeing politicians drawn from the same pool I already alluded to. The people going into political science and the law school. But I just don't think she is so far left. I don't think anything she wants is actually intelligent or realistically expected.
John, we want people to go in there. They go in there for the right reasons. These people go in there in order to order the American people around and take their liberty from them. If they go there for the right reasons, which is to serve the country and bring forth whatever solutions they have, and then once they do that, then they go back to their secular, life, their jobs that they had, having done a service for the country. They do the best they can while they're there. But you don't stay up there for 20 and 30 and 40 years. That wasn't the intention of the framers. And that's what they're doing. We have these career politicians up there. And what they're doing is serving their own interests. They want to be reelected. They want to maintain power.
What we got in Michigan, which I think is more distressing, is political legacy families. Do I have to kill these and the Dingles and that's terrifying. To me.
We have got to understand that we have the ballot in our hand and the power to remove these people from their perch in Washington D.C. This deep state apparatus they put in place there, so they can hide behind them. They put them out there in the forefront, appoint them and put them in positions, and then they're not elected officials but appointed to their positions, and they make all like the EPA and things and these other organizations, and then they rule behind them, and they're out there making these rules, and are not subject to the voters throwing them out of office, and so they had their hand by going through them and ruling through them, so that the voters will not have a way of rescinding the verdict at the poll, because the ones that are making decisions are not the politicians. They are passing their power over to the agents they've created, and that's why they have That's why they have this humongous government that has 2 million people in it. This was supposed to be small government, but what these politicians have done here is that they've created this bureaucracy to which they're not being held to account. They can be held to account, but they're not being held to account because American people cannot see that the person throwing the stone and hiding their hand, which is what these politicians are doing. But we have the power in our hand to change it. And we can change it in the blink of an eye, because 435 members of the Congress that are in the House, that means every last one of the members in the House comes up for re-election every 2 years. We can speak to this problem every 2 years. And then 1/3 of the senators up for election every 2 years. In other words, in 6 years' time, we've actually been able to replace all of the senators over the course of 6 years, to replace all the members of the Congress within a 6-year period of time. But all members of the House can be replaced every 2 years. We can throw them all. We can do what Peter Schweitzer says. We can throw them all out. We have the power to do that. And particularly if they're trying to do what they're doing with Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump has not colluded with the Russians. He didn't need the Russians. He just needed to have Hillary Clinton as the opponent.
What's really amazing is that the politician, I don't care if it's Republicans or Democrats, the career politician is actually almost like bewildered when it's revealed to them that what they're doing is not really helping the people out, and they're dismayed by the fact that they can't really make a case other than it was politically expedient for them to back those things. And they're just dismayed if you don't accept their explanations. And people are angry about it. They're just like dismayed, or they turn out and become like they're outraged by your decision not to be happy with what they did. That's the most galling part.
Yeah, John, what do you make out of them making everything now into a racial issue? Why do you think they're doing that?
I think, well, because basically they're out of everything else. I mean, basically they're trying to get this idea introduced into the white population's head that they just don't realize how great things are because they're white. And, you know, there might be an advantage to being born white if you're the majority of the population. But, you know, that's all true. But not everything you do is decided by your race. And that's what they're making it sound like. And that's just utterly... I know people who are black who like... Well, the other day I sent you that article about... they were saying that white people love dogs because they miss owning slaves. That's the most asinine, bizarre thing I ever heard in my life. Okay, I'm sorry. I mean, you own dogs. Do you miss owning slaves, Mr. Moss? You never had one, to my knowledge, right?
I have 2 dogs, and I don't have it because I have a uncovered need to own people, and that's when you sent me that nonsense, I had to I could not believe somebody would make a claim like that, but that's what we have going on right now. They've unleashed a lot of this nonsense out here, but the real reason why everything is being made into a racial issue is because they're losing control in the Democratic Party of their black voter base. They need 90 to 95% of blacks to vote Democrat in order to win national elections in this country, and they don't have that now. A person wrote me in Arizona and asked me, what do I think would be the black vote in 2020 for Donald Trump? And I told him it'll be 20%. If it is anywhere in that ballpark of 20%, then the Democrats are in serious trouble. And that's why you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until they begin to pull the race card out after the primary is over. You're going to see it going full steam ahead. But Donald Trump is still standing. And he's standing for the American people, and I think the American people are finally catching on that this is a hoax that they've run on this country for the last 2 years. And Mueller, that comes before them on Wednesday of this week, everybody needs to watch that because we want to see exactly the interrogation that goes on for the first time of this man that put in this bogus report and all this investigative things that he was doing to undermine this election. We're getting ready to try to bring that out this coming Wednesday. Okay, well, stay tuned. Okay, I got to get out of here. I want you to stay tuned to all the programs here at allpointstv.com. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.